Welcome back. So this is part 4. Now let me kind of walk you through the steps. Now that you learned them, let me kind of give you a sample so you know exactly how to apply those techniques. So number 1, I mentioned when you see a prompt like this or a question like this, is honesty always the best policy? And this is one of the most typical ones. And of course, there's leadership and friendship and so many different things. But again, let's start with honesty. Number 1, what do you do? So you're given this prompt, you're given this question, and exactly how do you tackle this? 20 seconds. Number 1, you have to think of 3 to 5 examples, right? So how do you do this? So think of novels, you can think of current events, historical events. So I'll go with maybe 1984, Fahrenheit 451, maybe of Mice and Men, right? So I have 3 there. And maybe if I wanted to stay more current, then I can go with presidents and former presidents. Bush, right? WMD, weapons of mass destruction, right? I can go with Clinton, Monica Lewinsky case, or Monica Lewinsky scandal. And I can also go with, say, Nixon, the Watergate scandal, right? So I have 6, and maybe I can bundle them, right, into 2 novels with former presidents. So let me just go with former presidents because I feel more comfortable. I know a lot about them. I do feel comfortable with the novels too, but I mean, let's stay more relevant with the current events. Is honesty always the best policy? So what's step number 2? Now I need to agree or disagree, right? And I told you, right? You need to let the examples dictate whether you say yes or no. Now, if I go with Bush, Clinton, and Nixon, I would have to go with I agree that honesty is always the best policy. So what's step number 3 now? I have to write my thesis. So number 1, I said you need to start with your keyword. So honesty, right? Plus agree or disagree. So I would say is crucial because I'm agreeing. Plus why. Okay, I have to answer this question. Why? Well, to build, right, and maintain trust. Now I can go and make it. I mean, better. I mean, I can say with their constituents, with their with the public, with I'm talking about leaders. I'm talking about politicians, with the mass. I mean, there's so many different ways you can make it better. But I want to say simple, so you can see exactly how you can construct this. Okay, so thesis is the keyword plus agree disagree plus the why. Without this, it's not a thesis. All you're doing is repeating the prompt. So let's move on to step 4. After I'm done with that, number 4 is I need to complete the intro. And the only way you can do that, and the best way to do that, is to use a plugin, meaning you have a template. My version has always been, say I wrote my thesis, so I have the thesis here, period. So I have thesis, 1 sentence. Then I would go and say maybe several examples. Now, it's more of a historical event plus current events because Bush, I was president until maybe a couple of days ago, so I can say several examples from uh, historical and maybe current events, right? Clearly demonstrate that, and you kind of have to say that honesty is the best policy one more time, but again, you don't want to be too repetitive, so I'd say that honesty always prevails, right? So this would be my version, right? So I have a thesis and I maybe have 1 plugin. By the way, this plugin, you can really plug in no matter what the prompt, right? It could be about leadership, maybe about media, about environment. Doesn't really matter. You can always say several examples from historical events. Maybe you can say from science, from medicine. There's so many different things you can really plug in there. But I mean, you don't have to change this plugin. Okay, so that's the cool thing about plugins is because you can apply no matter what the prompt is universal. Step 5. What's step 5? Now that you're done with the intro, now you need to move on to the transitional thesis. So I want you to start with the transition. So say as demonstrated by, there are many by the way, so you can say as demonstrated by, as shown by, through the actions of, in the novel, in the film. There are many ways you can transition smoothly from intro to the body paragraph 1. So I'll go with as demonstrated by, right? by, maybe I can go with, say, X, Y, Z, meaning I can choose, right? I can choose Clinton, Bush, or Nixon. So say I go with Clinton, that his actions during the Monica Lewinsky scandal, he lied to the public, so that really was detrimental to his reputation and integrity and so forth. And if I can summarize that into one simple sentence, that would be my transitional. Now, what I mean by transitional thesis is that you have to mention Clinton, and then you have to kind of restate that honesty is indeed the best policy. So if you do that, then that would be your step 5. Let me erase this one more time. So what's step 6? Now that you've introduced your first example, now you need to really plug in all details related to your example. So now you have 2 minutes, and you have to write 6 sentences, and you have to minimum of 6 sentences to really build what we, again, volume, right? The more you write, it looks more, it looks as if you know more about the subject matter, right? That you're more ready and you have all these details, right? So at least 6 sentences is what I'm asking in 2 minutes. I know it's rushing. I know it's very, I mean, you'll be rushing a lot, but again, you need to write at least 6, okay? So you can make sure that you pepper a little bit with all this statistics and dates and names, by the way, full names and so forth. So it looks more factual, okay? So say you wrote 6 sentences, right? And step number 7 would be PI, okay? And I call that a personal input. Now, why personal input? What do I mean by personal input? Say you went on and talked about Bill Clinton and the way he lied to the public, and that was wrong, and you feel, and so forth. And maybe to there, you're not really mentioning how you feel about it, right? But this part is really your opinion, okay? So say this part is all researched, and now it's all about you, okay? So how you feel about it. So say PI, I want you to start with therefore or hence or maybe thus. Okay, and this is more of a transition again. So therefore, so I go with therefore. Therefore, comma, former President Clinton's action to lie in front of the American public was wrong because of so and so. Now that's your opinion. And you're allowed to do that because what you're trying to do is tie all this detail that you just plugged in and then make it kind of make sense out of it, meaning going back and tying back to the prompt. So it's necessary that you write at least 1 or 2 sentences and of PI. Okay. Step 8 would be you have to repeat this process twice more. So you have 3 body paragraphs, not 2, right? Oops, I don't know what happened there. 3 body paragraphs. So you have 3 examples, and that's the only way you're going to get 11 or 12. Let me erase this one more time. Okay, step 9, conclusion, is really easy. My version has always been a plugin. Plugin, again, is you have a template. You know exactly what you have to write, and all you have to do is tweak it just a little bit to make it fit to your prompt, right? So my version has always been, say, after a careful, I don't know what's going on, careful analysis of X, Y, Z, right, comma, honesty is indeed, and by the way, indeed, I mentioned this before, it's extremely important that you plug in indeed, and then you can kind of modify your thesis one more time there. So after a careful analysis of X, Y, Z, meaning in this case would be Nixon, Clinton, and Bush, honesty is indeed important, maybe for politicians, right? To maintain or to build and maintain trust, right? And then you can mention that one more time, period. And again, you can't just write 1 sentence for the conclusion, right? So you need to write maybe 1 or 2 more sentences. And my version has always been without, right? Honesty, right? Or being honest, right? Or being honest, right? Being honest, comma. X or Y or Z could not have accomplished something, right? Period. Or you can say without, so I mean, there has to be some kind of contrast there. So without being honest, right? Or without honesty, XYZ would have not accomplished so and so. Or you can go the other way and say, because they were not honest, this happened. Okay, so that will conclude, I think, 2, 3 sentences. They're enough. You don't have to write more than that. I've seen students who write maybe 10 or maybe even more sentences for the conclusion, but I think that's just too much. You don't need all that, and I think that's good enough. Now, step 10, you have to spend maybe 1 or 2 minutes kind of reviewing your essay and making sure that you don't need to make any silly mistakes. And sometimes we tend to make actually a lot of silly mistakes when we're rushing. So I want you to go back, maybe check some spelling, grammar, and you have time. I mean, if you can really finish this in under 18 minutes, and by the way, this is an 18-minute drill, then you can always go back and change, maybe add some stuff, take out some stuff, and you can all do that. So I hope this helped, and I'll be posting maybe 1 or 2 prompts a week so you can try them, and then I'll be posting my version as well so you can take a look at them as well.